Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda. And this week is on positive thinking. As we think, so we become. And as we think, so our lives and circumstances become also. From the divine consciousness come answers to all our questions and solutions to all our problems. It is in lower consciousness that confusion reigns. Think positively in everything you do, for in that way you help to attune yourself to the divine flow. One who is inwardly in tune with grace finds all things harmonious and beneficial being attracted to him. Positive thinking, combined with a sense of divine attunement, is never presumptuous, for it draws its power not from the ego, but from the consciousness of God's joy within. And let's affirm, my outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts, filled with the joy of God. I express His joy and harmony in everything I do. My outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts, filled with the joy of God. I express His joy and harmony in everything I do. And a little quieter, my outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts, filled with the joy of God. I express His joy and harmony in everything I do. And whispering, my outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts, filled with the joy of God. I express His joy and harmony in everything I do. And silently, my outer life is a reflection of my inner thoughts, filled with the joy of God. I express His joy and harmony in everything I do. And please pray silently. Problems cannot exist, Lord, whenever Thou art near. Give me strength always to hold Thee in my heart. And from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Entitled Perfection is Self-Transcendence. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We begin this week with a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 5. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. If you love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the tax collectors the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even pagans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. This teaching is a continuation of last week's lesson. To love all equally as possible, only by seeing God everywhere, in others as well as in oneself. See whatever comes to you, unasked for, as a manifestation of His will. Be grateful for the pains you experience, for they are healing strokes of His love. Sometimes healing is effected only by strong measures, but His love for you is manifested in the very attempt to heal. Strive always to be impersonal, as though whatever happens to you were happening to someone else. Persecution gives us a supreme opportunity to deny the thought, this is happening to me, and to affirm our inner freedom from the thought of ego. Don't allow the negative perceptions of others to become your own self-definition. Seek God. This is the true goal of life, though how difficult to cling to in the midst of hatred, spite, and persecution. The Bhagavad Gita tells us in the 7th chapter, out of thousands one strive for spiritual attainment, and out of many blessed truth seekers who strive to reach me, one perhaps perceives me as I am. O truth seeker, be one among all those thousands who seek the supreme goal. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. And from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, entitled, Dance in Me, Thy Dance of Infinity. O Mother Divine, I have learned to love Thy dance of destruction, for I see now that what is destroyed is my own ignorance and folly. Thou hast shattered again and again with Thy war dance of destruction my fragile cage of bones and flesh, and consigned it to crematory flames. Thou hast done so smilingly, to show me and everyone that our souls are ever free and cannot be burned or broken. With Thy mercy, Thou hast stripped away, sometimes seemingly with harshness, but always with loving purpose, the countless hardened, mud-encrusted covers of delusion that coated us. I appreciate now Thy dance of devastation, Mother. Together let us cremate every desire, frailty, weakness, and finitude forever and ever. I'll join Thee, laughing in Thy dance of evil's destruction. O Mother, since nothing more is left now of my finiteness for Thee to destroy, dance in me Thy dance of infinity and of cosmic love. And this last reading is from God Alone, The Letters and Saints of a Saint. If you haven't read this book, it's highly recommended. This is from Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple, and these are letters to devotees, and it really is a handbook of discipleship. It's absolutely fabulous. When Gainamata died in 1951, this was in November, Yogananda said that his life then was to be very, very short, and indeed he passed just months later. Gainamata was Teresa of Avila, and if you have a chance to read of her life, she was an ecstatic saint and went through enormous trials during that particular period, hundreds of years ago. No one understood at all the heights that she had reached. And again, this was during those times when people that were in these high states of ecstasy, they were not being treated kindly. This was a time of literally of witch hunts and so forth. So hers was not an easy life. And Yogananda said that she would be liberated in this lifetime. And just shortly before she passed, she was heard to utter, "Too much joy, too much joy." And when Master came after she had passed her body, passed from her body, he said to the disciples that were there and privileged to be there during her Mahasamadhi, he said, "Feel her feet." And her feet were just frozen cold. And he said, "Now feel the top of her head." And the top of her head was burning. And he said, that is what happens when you leave this body in freedom. Her 1,000-petal lotus had opened, and so there it was. Her feet were cold. She had drawn that energy on up and was free. And Yogananda said that he watched her disappear, then merge, I should say, in the watchful state. And so these letters are just fabulous, and so this is just one on the chapter, Right Attitude. This was written to a disciple October 7th, 1940. If I were to give you the gift that I would like best of all to offer you, it would be the right attitude toward God and Guru, toward life, toward your work, toward the others of your group. But the best gifts cannot be purchased and given. The gifts and graces of the soul must be acquired by patient, daily practice. All will surely be yours in time, for if you do not obtain them in the position to which God has called you, where in the world are they to be found? The Buddha said, "The profit of the holy life, O monks, lies not in gains and favors and honor, nor in the fulfillment of morals, nor in the fulfillment of concentration, nor in knowledge and vision, but just this, O monks, the sure, unshakable deliverance of the mind. That is the aim of this holy life. That is its heart. That is its goal. Swami used to enjoy telling this story, and it's actually quite an outrageous one, where I'm not sure, I think in some town somewhere in the U.S., there was this man, and he was exceedingly grumpy, such that the children became afraid of him. And this went on for 2 decades, 20 long years. And they didn't know from one moment to another if he would yell at them or throw rocks at them. He was really a very grumpy guy. Who knows what his history was? Well, one day he came out of his home, and the children that were passing by in the neighborhood were cowering because they didn't know what to expect from this gentleman, if you want to call him such. And he was like a ray of sunshine. So they thought, oh boy, this is probably even worse. The pendulum will swing, and who knows? He'll go from throwing little rocks to, big boulders after he's, come through whatever this experience is. And so, not knowing what to do, they simply waited. And the next day, again, there he was, and happy and cheerful, and they were just mystified. And it was a small town, and word got around that there was something going on that was really, really strange with this man. And then days passed into weeks. And finally, one of the courageous town's members, who knows what it was, maybe some burly policeman that could hold his ground in case all of a sudden there was a pendulum swing from this man, he timidly knocked on his door and said, really, the whole town is wondering what's going on. I mean, you have been a legend, an absolute legend, just, created, so much havoc, with, your temper and so forth. What's going on? And he wasn't really ready for this very, very simple, childlike reply. The man said, I, as you know, have been, very negative these last 20 years. I just got sick of it. So I decided to change. And Raja said that you can change a habit in a day. And so this soul, maybe he was, in, Valmiki's school, of thought. Well, Valmiki found out from a saint that all these things you're doing, Valmiki was saying, I'm just robbing and doing all these things to support my family. And the man said, you're getting lots of bad karma, and Valmiki was horrified. And he couldn't even say, when the saint gave him the mantra Rama, he couldn't even say it. He was so evil and steeped, in darkness. So the saint said, that's all right. Just do what you can. Say Mara, 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 and then you will find, something wonderful happening. And what happened was Mara, Mara, Mara turned into Rama, 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 and Valmiki turned into a saint. Now, Yogananda cautioned us, don't go around doing bad things, thinking, God is doing everything. Of course he is. But we want, of course, to be good and embrace, rather, as Sri Yukteswar said, learn to behave. So this reading of Gyanamatas is so vital for us, whether we are in this world, on the spiritual path, gratefully we are, or, perhaps steeped in materialism. Nevertheless, right attitude is absolutely everything. As Swami Kriyananda loved to give this image regards meditation. A marionette puppet, when held up by an arm or a leg, is just a jumble of strings. But when picked up by the top of the head, everything falls nicely into place. And so it is with right attitude. The thing that's the challenge in this world is this world reinforces wrong attitude. And because Maya and so forth has its own wisdom, if you can call it such, then it will remind us again and again, this is the reason to be in a mood. This is the reason to be negative. This is the reason, to have all of these bad habits. Because look at this world. It's just a mess. But what did Anandamoyi Ma say when a disciple came up to her, so concerned about the condition of the world, and she said, so sweetly, "Don't you think that God, who has created us, can take care of His world?" Some people scratch their heads and say, "Well, I've come to think of it, I'm not so sure." But as we embrace the long rhythm of life, then we can begin to ponder more and more. As Master said, when we are done with this experience, we will say, and this is across the board, no matter how many incarnations we've been steeped in Maya, when we are done and we are free, we will say, it's been a good show. And so we should say that now. That's very, very important. Look what Swami pointed out in this reading, that the experiences that come to us, experiences perhaps that are harsh and so forth, we should feel it's happening to another person. As Swami Kriyananda said, I'm an event. Kriyananda is an event that I'm responsible for. Someone said to him, "Are you going to be going to this lecture?" It was a lecture where he was a part of a panel and so forth. And he said, "Well, I wouldn't go if I could get out of it, but I am speaking." And so he was obligated to go, "Oh my goodness, look who's come. We've been waiting for you guys." Our little infant. Okay, great, very great. Roma's going to be so happy. So, for us, it really is a matter of being very, very childlike. From time to time, especially as Swami Kriyananda, in his later years, in his 70s and his 80s, in his 60s too, but especially in the last few decades, I would just think to myself, he's the melting man. He's just, right before our eyes. All of this karma is just going away. It's absolutely amazing. And as I've been giving more thought to it and reflecting, especially, he came in as a real titan, as Yogananda said, if Walter, who he called Swami Kriyananda, had come earlier, we would have reached millions. As it worked out, Swami Kriyananda, through his writings and so forth, reached millions anyway. But as I gave more thought to Swami, and continue to give more thought, because it's very beneficial, obviously, to meditate on the lives of these saints, I thought, as he was beginning to disappear into the light, right before our eyes, really what was happening was he was becoming more and more childlike and totally immersed in his guru, such that he said, at this point, I'm not really sure where my thoughts leave off and Yogananda's, come on. There was this incredible, fabulous attunement that he had. And he had, as is true of so many souls that have a great work to do, as Yogananda said of Swami Kriyananda, they're not spared. There's tremendous, tremendous testing that happens. One time, and this was back, I think, in the 70s, when Swami Kriyananda was just starting Ananda, one of the members came up to him, and for whatever reason, maybe just for fun, I don't know, began to share with him all of the huge obstacles that he had faced that year, one after another, no doubt physical, because he was always, battling his health, and on it went. And he shook his head, and he said, "Oh my, I didn't realize." I thought, very good. Very, very good. That's what we want. to rise to the occasion, so that as we are getting hammered, we are thinking more and more in terms of the motive of Divine Mother. Because in this reading, as we speak of perfection, Divine Mother is perfect, and she makes no mistakes. She looks at us and says, oh, I think today they have sufficient strength, and so I'm going to work out more karma than usual. And she doesn't share this with us, or we would, want to take the day off. And so then we get hammered, and it's one thing after another. But if we keep our wits about us, and if we keep our attitude, and we keep our focus on the goal of perfection, then we say, is the love still there? And we go inside and we find, yes. Is the joy still there? Yes. Is the mischief still there? Oh yeah, the mischief is still there, because this is God's Leela and this is God's dream. And so as Swami Kriyananda was becoming more and more childlike, I appreciated so much, as I appreciate now, that there was this total dependence as a child has upon their parent on Divine Mother. The Divine Mother would provide, and if she provided nothing, not all of us can have right attitude, especially when we're wanting something, and undoubtedly it's a wholesome thing. But she takes her good time, and we think, but she's still providing. What is she providing? She's providing nothing. Nothing in terms of perhaps our outer desire, but everything, which is everything, in terms of that continuous, and there is no break, of that divine love and that divine joy. And so as we strive for perfection, we should spend more and more time living the life of the saints, so that we are inviting them again and again and again into our hearts. A very, very good thing to do. And I've been practicing this more and more, and it really has been extremely helpful. I have this image that we're all in a washing machine on the agitation cycle. And, the soap suds and all of that stuff, it's not all that pleasant. We know why we're in the washing machine, and we don't know what the drying cycle is going to be like, when we're in the tumbler, but we're not facing that at the moment. We're in the washing cycle. Every once in a while, the lid pops, and we look around and we go, oh my God, and then sucked down again by our karma back into the agitation cycle. Well, I don't know. I love images, and I think that's a good one. And but when the lid pops, and we're able to, get a little breath, that is grace. It's grace too in the agitation cycle, but it takes a tightened to have that right attitude when we're going through it. But certainly we can appreciate when the lid pops and we can get a little bit of air, and there is that joy and there is that relief. Thank God. Thank God. Don't forget that. It's very, very important. So that throughout the day, we become very, 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 very aware of the maneuverings of Divine Mother. Through the thoughts that we have, through the feelings that we have, on all fronts, our environment, the people that we are interacting with. And when she pops the lid, and it can be anything. It can be a revelation. Right in the middle of exacting work, all of a sudden there's this thought, what a privilege to be serving in this way, whatever way that might be. And all of a sudden there's this refreshment. Thank God. And so after a while, there is this experience that happens to us where, as Frank Laubach, the great modern mystic, if you have a chance to read his book, little pamphlet, Letters by a Modern Mystic. It's really, really great. He was continuously conversing with God. And so when he was a Christian, and he would go around, as a matter of fact, he had a campaign. He would go to the various churches, and his campaign was that in the sermons, they say God. In the sermons. that the churches had gotten so far off that they would talk about everything else, but God, Oh, forgot about that. Oops. So that was his campaign. Outrageous. Say God in your sermon if you possibly can. So he was constantly in this wonderful state, a highly advanced soul, of talking to God. So when he was asked to pray at these various prayer meetings, what came out was a very natural dialogue that was going on anyway. I thought, wow, that's something. He didn't have to go and consult a book or stumble around for some choice words. Out, spontaneously, came this wonderful flow, animated with joy and with love. The words that were appropriate for the occasion, truly a prayer. And so as we strive for perfection, then again, as I shared earlier, and I've just been real happy with this thought that's been popping around my head, we are reality dreaming, as opposed to we're dreaming of reality. Because the dream of reality puts God and the great ones out there somewhere. And what good does that do us? It doesn't do us any good, because it just reinforces the thought of separation. But if the thought rather is, I am reality dreaming, then we can wink at God, because we know who we are and we know where we're going. What a difference it makes. We are reality. And if there is resistance in this thought, as I shared with you, perhaps in the early years I couldn't affirm, because when I would affirm I am joy, the other chorus, the bad guys would say, oh man, please don't go there. You are not joy. Please. Okay, I am love. Oh, not that either. You're not love. I mean, you know what you did yesterday? And so forth. So I had to kind of table affirmation for a while. I knew that it was real. I knew it had power. I just had to do other things. So I immersed myself in seva. I immerse myself in chanting. There's so much to do, as Master said. If you do just a fraction of what I ask you, you'll get there. And also to console us in this reading, as we were reading about the Gita, and out of 1,000, one seeks me. Master did say, our percentages are better. And I thought, okay, now we're talking. Our percentages are better. I'm glad, because you think, out of 1,000 that seeks me, okay, that's bad enough. And then out of all those guys, one guy finds me. Let's just go to some, island of paradise and forget all of this sadhana. It's just too hard. But our percentages are better. And so we should continue to keep the bar very, very high, even if it gives us a bit of a neck ache, seeing that really where we're going, this lifetime, if at all possible, is for perfection. Remember, we're not safe until we've achieved Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Even in Sabbakalpa Samadhi, Paul Brunton, if you've read his wonderful book of the various saints, fabulous book, In Search of Secret India, I believe is the title. He had Sabbakalpa Samadhi, but Master said he dropped from that state, he fell from that state. Why? Because he was attached to being an Englishman. I thought, oh my God. All I could think of is, at the end of his incarnations, he'll also be able to say it's been a good show. He may choke on that particular incarnation. When he was in Sabbakalpa Samadhi, in meditation, you have your samadhi, you have your ecstasy. But when you come down from it, you're caught again. That's why we have to be in that state where, yes, you've got your samadhi, but when you come back down from that state on this earth plane, then you aren't touched. You still retain that state. That's what we want. A tall order. But we can't possibly get there by ourselves. It's really way, way too difficult. I'm about ready on Tuesday to jump on the plane and head to the States. And I'm already missing home, because home is here, and you all, India. And I think to myself, okay, now what is that all about? Well, as Master said, there is this divine plan where the Americans are coming to India and they're reincarnating, and the Indians are coming to America. And you see so many times the Indians, they've been there for 20 years. Are you going back to India this year? Oh, no, I went 5 years ago, and that's good enough for me. And back and forth it goes. Others, here, Americans and so forth, Europeans, we're here and we're thinking, uh-oh, back to the States, yikes, let me stay here. So, of course, going back to New York, where Roma is, haven't seen her for 3 months, it's never been that long, and our daughter Rose, of course, I'm looking forward to it. But I'm thinking to myself, what a flip. Here, India drives you crazy. Even Swami said you have to leave India every once in a while just to remain sane. But also, keep in mind that this country is so extraordinarily unique that there's no other country like it. None. And the vibrations here are so incredibly powerful. So though on the physical plane it creates some excitement for us, just step right out the door and you'll see, and you will know. I am preaching to the choir here. But still, it's the vibration that's everything. And all this other stuff is, perhaps a little bit of a nuisance. Going to the States, I've got to make sure that I can keep my India in my heart, which of course I will to the extent that I can, because there everything will be perfect. Go like this, and everything is there for you. But the vibration, one has to stay on one's toes. And so that's why, again, many executives from the States are coming to India more regularly, and they're asked, you used to not come that often. Why? I don't know. I just like it here. As this vibration, bit by bit, is beginning to seep into their souls. They don't even know why they're being drawn. And perhaps their colleagues back in the States are saying, gee, you used to go to India every 5 years to check on your team. Now you go every year. Why? I don't know. I just like it there. A very good start. The soul is propelling them. The mind hasn't caught up. The heart hasn't caught up. But those, and you are also fortunate to have been born here, which I'm assuming you all have, or maybe there's a few exceptions, I don't know. But nevertheless, this place, there's no other place like it. As Yogananda said when he was here in the mid-30s, he walked around with Swami Yogi Ramya, Ramana Maharshi's disciple, who was a fully liberated soul. Walked hand in hand with him for a half an hour, and he said, if I had walked with him any longer, I would have not been able to leave India. And so, though it was a great prize for us to have Master there in the States for us 30 years, nevertheless it was a sacrifice for him. And he tried toward the end of his life to come here, and taking Swami with him too. But each time, Divine Mother didn't give him the nod. And so then, of course, he passed in Mahasamadhi in 52, and he wasn't able to get to India but just once in the mid-30s. And so, as we strive for perfection, don't take for granted for a moment the blessings that are here, because they are real. They are reality. And all of the challenges that all of us have in the workplace, perhaps, and with family, and with our karma, obviously, that is nothing compared to the blessing of being steeped in this vibration. And so we're going after perfection. But along the way, as Master said, long before we reach the goal, there'll be many, many blessings. And I was sharing with a friend that came down from Delhi, Vipa. She was the one who was so sweet. When we were there in Gurgaon in 2005, we were being, moved along from Times building there in the central part of Delhi, because they were going to change the emphasis. They were having programs there, but now it was going to be retreats. So we were a bit shocked. We didn't know what to do. And so we said to the audience, so maybe there were 40, 50 people there during that workshop, that satsang. We said, if anyone can think of a place, we've got to get out of here. I think it was like the next week. And Vippa raised her hand at the back of the room. She says, I live right next door. You can come to my house. We said, oh my gosh. And now she's a long-term teacher, long-term Kriyaban. And so she came and we were talking. And we were sharing that it is so amazing that we found Yogananda, that we discovered the inner life, and that we are still on the path. And I said, yes. I said, that's 2 miracles. All we have to do is to reflect when we didn't have this inner life. From time to time, actually, it's a good journey. Just to kind of, maybe to work on our gratitude. And then we cross the line, and God and the great ones come to us, change our lives. And then we're able to sustain that sadhana, sustain that seva. 2 miracles. And so we were talking in that vein. And I thought to myself, what a sweet thing. You never know how divine works. Does anyone know where there's a place we could be? Please let us know. You can be at our place. And Roma and I were there every week for years. We would commute from Gurgaon to Delhi. And how, another miracle, how we were able to do that. Roma and I have a very poor sense of direction. Oftentimes we'll say, whose is the worst? And we'll have a big, huge debate over who has the worst sense of direction. And this was always at night. We commute from Gurgaon to Delhi 3 nights a week. And they were always, because it was during the time when they were building the metro, they were always changing the detours. So I said to Roma finally, because in those days I was driving, and because when we get the taxis, they would drive so fast, they were all sports car drivers apparently, that by the time we get to the satsang, we were ill. And I thought, I just learned to drive in Mexico when I was 14 years old. I'll just drive again. And so I did for about 3.5 years. But to keep peace in the family, when Rome and I would head home, a little easier to get there because it was daylight, a little harder to get home, I'd say, no problem. Let's just factor in that we're lost for 20 minutes every night. And it was pretty much on the mark. And if you ask anybody, they say, of course, the language is an issue. But, oh, yeah, with full confidence, go right. And then you go right and you're off in, some labyrinth and so forth. And so Vippa, we had a wonderful time there. And I said, the only thing that's missing is Roma wasn't there and Hari, her husband, because we've had so many wonderful visits together. So, spiritual family, satsang, the blessings of this life, something that, again, as I said, we can't take it for granted. These are blessings that have come to us from enormous effort. Enormous effort. Master said, the reason that you're with me now, he said to his direct disciples, is because you've been with me in the past and you've been hermits many times. And that undoubtedly is why, there's a battle, ongoing battle, I think, with each and every one of us. If we were to come up and share, where would you like to go? Babaji's cave, Ranikhet, get me out of here. Get me to get me to seclusion. I was talking to some friends and they said, as soon as our kids out of the house, we are gone. And we love our kids and all of that. But I was thinking to myself, that's because as yogis, we love our seva. We love our satsang. But there is that backlog of so many incarnations where we have really gained spiritually. As Master said, and I will close, seclusion is the price for greatness. And that's absolutely true. And so as we reach for perfection, we need to get that balance of seva, and at the same time taking that time alone. We're not being selfish. When we take time to ourselves to meditate, to be in seclusion, it's the best thing we can do for ourselves, and it's the best thing that we can do for one another. Okay, well, God bless you.